Yes, sir.
Tony, I did have one question. You just, we'll probably get into it later this week, but you caught said something that interested me. You said you've seen the catch light or the twinkle in their eye when you turn that. What are you looking for when you're aiming the light at the model?
That's a great question, Brett. Depending on the type of photograph it is. If it is a traditional portrait, I want to make sure that I've got a good, solid catch light in both eyes. And because the eyes are everything. If you lose the eyes, you really do lose the picture. And I mean, you know, you think about the snap or the sparkle or that great look. I would be dead if I lost those highlights in her eyes. On that one over there on the far left, the 3/4 standing, it's a pretty directional light, but there is a great highlight at 1 o'clock in both eyes. And I'm always going to make sure that I try to get that in there because it does bring the picture to life. As long as that light is in those eyes, you can almost be forgiven for a lot of sins, but not that one. If you miss the eyes, you're kind of dead. And, you know, you're not going to have the sales that you want that'll sustain a career. But again, for me, that was a huge revelation when I started moving that reflector from, you know, if I'm on the side view looking at her from here, instead of that being here, it was huge revelation for me when I started reflecting that light from here. Big, big difference. Okay? Yeah, so thank you. I think we're good. Thanks.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tessa. So we're getting a couple of questions. One from Misty, and then we have somebody else. Sorry, I don't catch your name. If you're using studio lighting, do you need to cover the windows to avoid mixing the different types of light? And how about the ambient light in your studio? What is best practices, please?
In most cases, the studio lights will overpower whatever's going on. In most cases, they will overpower your ambient light. But there are times when you can get yourself in trouble, not so much with exposure, but you could get yourself in trouble with a little bit of color balance issues. But again, most cases, when that strobe fires, it is going to overpower whatever's going on. For me, though, I want to kill the ambient light mostly, Jim, because I'm worried about my backgrounds and any contamination getting on something that I'm trying to keep dark. And if I'm trying to shoot against a white wall, or like we've got this wonderful white brick we're going to be using later, if I'm trying to keep light off of those things, sometimes ambient light will truly affect me.
Right.
And so it's kind of an issue. So it is a good idea to pull down the ambience whenever you can.
Okay.
Close windows when you can. It will minimize not just the problems, but it will also maximize what you see as what you get. Mm-hmm. And that's as important as maximizing the problems.
Cool.
You know.
Love it. Let's see. Do we have any questions here in the audience? Have an opportunity.
Ms. Lee?
When you do like a group shot, like you were showing with the fall off, can you expect to get a catch light in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, I'll have a catch light in everybody's eyes. You know, it's interesting too, when you think about this, it's funny how exposure-wise, I was always told when I first started, I was told, well, you know, if somebody's got really, really dark skin, you might want to overexpose a little bit. And then if you got somebody with really, really light skin, you might want to underexpose just a little bit, just so their skin looks good. Well, wait a minute, what if they get married? You know, are you going to tell people, sorry, I can't photograph your wedding because I can't figure out what the exposure is going to be. One of you's got white skin, one of you's got black skin. I mean, you know, that's always an issue. Anytime I've got a group, and anytime I shoot anything, my incident meter is my rock. And whatever the dome of that meter tells me to do, with the dome of that meter placed at that light source, is exactly what I do within 1/10 of a stop. I don't vary ever. And I never miss my exposures ever. So I fixed it. So I fixed it from an objective standpoint, and then from a subjective standpoint. So I'll make sure that I got the exposure nailed, and I'll make sure there's a catch light in everybody's eyes, both eyes. Unless it's a picture that doesn't call for that. Sometimes there's a specialty shot that doesn't call for that. But for the most part, for a family, you betcha. Yeah. And with glasses, your glasses can be a real problem and a challenge for some photographers. And especially the photographers that have a fill light fixed in the back of their studio. That can be a real issue. And so for the first, I guess, 8 years of my career, I worked with a fill light in the studio. And my biggest challenge was glasses. A fill light was defined as non-directional, non-specular light source that would be at a level below the main light. Okay? So my main light, let's say, reads f8. My fill light might read f5.6. Well, the problem was that the fill light would be, to be non-directional, it's got to be in line with my camera and back behind me and up kind of high usually. And some people use an umbrella for that. But it gave me 5 highlights that I didn't like. It would give me a hot spot on the chin, on the tip of the nose, right between the eyes, and on both cheeks. And it would give me an extra catch light right in the middle of the eyes. And I didn't like that. So I stopped using a fill light. Well, that threw everybody into a tizzy. Tony's not using a fill light. How are you handling your shadows? Well, I was using reflectors quite a bit. If I'm doing a big group, I will use a fill light. If it's more than 4, 5, 6 people, I'll use a fill light, but I would rather not. So I choose not to do very many groups. But glasses are an issue. But the one thing about glasses, glare on glasses, we could talk about the short light and broad light situation and which way you light a face from the left or the right. And I can tell you that in a case where, let's say, there's my light source, I'm turned here and I bring my head back to the light this way. If your camera, Catherine, right? If your camera, you're exactly on axis with my reflection. You're going to see it perfectly right there. But if I'm turned this way and my head is turned this way, you'll never see it. Because now my glass is not on axis with that. Remember the old rule that says angle of incidence equals the angle of reflectance. So light bounces away at the exact same angle that it comes in. And with convex glasses especially, it's bad. And you almost have to have this kind of a light where you're lighting one side of the face, not lighting with the face into the light, because it's a real issue. So.
Okay, Tony, question from Pro Photographer. If you are using multiple lights, are you concerned with multiple catch lights in the eyes? Do you ever remove or alter catch lights in post? And then Photo 2 asked, is 2 catch lights a no-no?
You ask 5 photographers and you get 5 totally different answers.
Okay.
So it is a subjective thing. But let me tell you the way I think about it. First of all, on the catch lights, with multiple catch lights. For years, I was told that we had to spot out that extra catch light in the eye. You got to remove it. On film days, you would spot it off with pencils and dyes. Digitally, you go in and clone it out. And yet, every fashion magazine in the world has all the catch lights in the eyes. Nobody ever removes catch lights. They're there. They're all there. People are used to seeing them, I think. So on this picture in the center, for example, that catch light is there, and it's solid, and it was there on purpose. I was trying to create that look, that Vogue cover look. So it absolutely is there for that reason, because it's what people are used to seeing. So why would I want to get rid of it? I placed it there on purpose. Multiple highlights in the eyes is not an issue unless, and this is, and I have to say this for new photographers starting out. The issue can be a problem if you're using twin main lights. And what I mean by that is, let's say that I'm the subject and I'm standing here and you're the photographer here, and you've got a main light right there at a 45 and you've got another main light right there at a 45, and they're both coming in on my face. That's a no-no. First off, because you're going to get the 2 catch lights at the exact catch lights catch lights at the exact same place in the eye but on the opposite side. And second off, I don't have a directional light. I don't have a main light. You have to have a main light. There has to be a key light on this photograph. So if I've lit my subjects properly, for ProPhoto, if I've lit my subjects properly, there won't be an issue with removing or having multiple catch lights. I should have 1, unless in the case of this, where I'm trying to bounce one back in there. I will almost never have more than 1 light on the face. So it's never been an issue for me. I can have 10 lights on the set, but I might usually have 1 light on the face. So the multiple catch lights is not a big issue very often. But it's a great, great question. I'm glad you brought it up.
Awesome.
Seriously.
Thank you.
Definitely. We have, let's take a question from Bob.
Could you give your personal opinion about ring lights?
Ring lights are awesome. I think ring lights, I I didn't understand ring lights for a long time, and I don't use one on a day-to-day basis.
Can you, for people who may not know what they are, could you explain what they are?
Yeah. Can I just go to the board and kind of draw this off real quick and show you what I'm talking about? But a ring light is really, here's a side view. There's my tripod. There's my lens. There's my camera. Yeah. Okay. So a ring light basically is a light source that you shoot right through the center of, and it is a light source that is circular, that has a hole that I stick my lens through. My lens goes through that hole, and it's a circular source that's round, and it's directly in proportion with my lens. So wherever I go, it's basically a shadowless light source. What's cool about that is some people's skin doesn't handle it quite as nicely, but there's 2 or 3 things that are very distinct about it. One is the catch light. The catch light in the eye being a specularity, mirrored image of whatever created the light, that's one issue. The specular highlight from a ring light is unlike any reflection you've ever seen in somebody's eye. It's funky. It can be thought of as weird and funky, but it's very contemporary and it's very hot right now. And if I'm working on a background that's kind of lighter tonality, if I'm within, say, 8 or 10 feet or less to that background, my subjects will have this little soft black shadow around their shoulders, head, arms. That's really cool, and you can't get it any other way. But you can get it with a ring light, and it's very cool. I think everybody should rent one and try one. I think they're great, Bob, but you need to test it and play with it. You're not going to like it on people past 40 or 50. Okay, 60.
There you go. All right.
Let me rephrase it. You're going to love it on people under 50 or 60. How's that?
That's perfect. I think we've got time for about one more question.
Okay.
Let's go with Karen from KDA Photography. Let's take it back a little bit. How do you decide which side of the subject you want your key light on? How do you decide
Great.
on that placement?
Well, you want the real answer or you want the funny answer? The funny answer is which side is the plug on? Where can you plug in? For me, I do a couple of things. I do kind of a facial analysis, if you will, by just looking at the face. And almost everybody has one eye a little bit bigger than the other. Almost everybody has a nose that's a little bit crooked. Almost everybody has a part in their hair. There are little things like that. If there's a part in the hair, I want that part of the face to be lit. I want to light into the part, if that makes any sense. And so I'll often look at like if Amy Lynn, right? If Amy Lynn's part was a little more prominent, I would turn her that way and bring her face back this way, and then I would light into the part. And the reason for that is if I light opposite the part, the hair appears to have a bigger bump. Or if I light into the part, the hair looks more symmetrical, if you will, less bump. Yeah, so I do look for that. And then I also, like I say, if someone's got a nose that's kind of leaning that way, I want to shoot into that, not against it. I want to complementary likeness. So I'm pretty watchful of that sort of thing. But I'll usually look at a face and say, I think you're going to like your hair is perfect if I light from over here. So I might turn your shoulders that way, just spin that way a little bit, and I just bring your head back this way. Perfect. And I'm going to light right into your part this way. And now I'm not throwing a shadow over your eye from that hair that's coming down over your right eye. But if I lit from over here, I could get myself in real trouble.